Today's lesson is Emma Myers and the Power of Being Yourself. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And we've got a celebrity to talk about today, and her name is Emma Myers, and it's all about the power of being yourself. Okay, don't be pretentious. Don't try to be someone you're not. Just be yourself, and everything will be okay. And I guess Emma Myers is a good example of that. She's a role model for all of us.
Exactly. A very young actress that some of you might not be familiar with, but I was doing some research on her, and when I typed the name Emma into Google, the first person who appeared in their listing was Emma Myers. So clearly, a lot of people are interested in this person, and she's being looked up on the internet and has probably a lot of fans too. So we're going to find out all about her career, how many successes she's had at still a relatively young age, and also the power of being yourself, how she's always sort of stuck to her own true calling and not tried to change too much to fit other people's opinions, and how this is a very good attitude to have, especially in the world of entertainment. So let's find out all about Emma Myers and the power of being herself. Emma Myers and the power of being yourself. In Netflix's Wednesday, Emma Myers gives a scene-stealing performance as Enid Sinclair, Wednesday Addams' outgoing werewolf best friend. However, in real life, Myers is the opposite of Enid. A self-described introvert, Myers took an unconventional road to television stardom.
大家好，第一部分介绍形容词 outgoing， 它的意思是开朗的或是外向的。例如 As an outgoing person, Jamie enjoys public speaking and networking. 身为开朗的人 Jamie 喜欢公众演讲与建立人际关系。或是As a child, Corey was quite shy and often avoided social situations, but now he is much more outgoing. Corey 小时候很害羞，并经常避免社交场合，但现在他开朗多了。接着看到形容词 unconventional， 意思是非传统的、不寻常规的。例如 Roger is known for thinking up unconventional solutions to problems. Roger 以想出打破传统的方法来解决问题而闻名。或者Alex has an unconventional approach to business, but there's no doubt he has been a success in his career. Alex 经商的手法不因循旧习，不过毫无疑问的，他的事业很成功。另外补充 unconventional 的反义词 conventional, C-O-N-V-E-N-T-I-O-N-A-L, conventional, 意思是传统的。举个例子 I'm just going to wear a conventional black suit to Clinton's wedding.我打算就穿传统的黑西装出席 Clinton 的婚礼。或是 Conventional business models often fail in today's fast-paced global economy. 传统的商业模式容易在现在快节奏的全球经济中失败。
Okay, so here in the first part, we're going to talk about her life and times. It says, in Netflix's Wednesday, Emma Myers gives a scene-stealing performance as Enid Sinclair, Wednesday Addams' outgoing werewolf best friend. It's a pretty long sentence there. It gives us a lot of information here. First of all, we're talking about Netflix. Of course, that's an online platform for movies and TV shows and stuff like that. And they've got a particular show called Wednesday, which, of course, is the day of the week. But it's also the name of a character from an old American situation comedy called The Addams Family, and she was a girl, and then they later made movies based on that TV show, and now they've got this new TV show on Netflix called Wednesday, and she gives a performance which is scene stealing. To steal something just means to get all the attention or to take something that doesn't belong to you. And if it's scene stealing, basically whenever she appears in a scene, everybody notices her. And again, this is her role, Enid Sinclair. And who is that in this show? Well, she's a werewolf, which is a person who turns into a wolf, usually when the full moon is out. And she's also outgoing, which means she's very gregarious. She likes to make friends with people. She's not afraid to talk. She's not shy at all. And again, she's the best friend of Wednesday Addams. Okay, Wednesday Addams, of course, is the main character in this particular TV show. And Edith Sinclair is Wednesday's best friend. And again, she is a werewolf who is very friendly and outgoing.
Exactly right. Of course, Jenna Ortega is the actress who plays Wednesday, the titular character in that show. But Emma Myers is her good friend and outgoing. But this is not who she is in real life. As we read on, it says, a self-described introvert, Myers took an unconventional road to television stardom. So there you go. She might play someone who is outgoing. An outgoing person we could also describe as being an extrovert. Okay, an extrovert is an outgoing person, a people person, someone who likes to get out there and be in social situations, go to parties, meet new people, chat, engage in small talk and all that kind of stuff. They love to be around other people as much as possible. But if you're an introvert, you are the opposite. You might be considered shy, so you're not unfriendly. You don't hate people or anything like that. You're just happy on your own. You're happy being quiet. You're happy reading your book, staying home, not going out. And when you do go out, you might find that, okay, I've been here for an hour. I'm ready to leave. You have a sort of a low social battery, as we might say. You know, it runs down quickly, and you're perfectly happy on your own being left alone. This is self-described. I don't know if anyone would go to a psychologist and say, I don't know if I'm an extrovert or an introvert. It's usually just you know yourself. So how you talk about yourself, how you describe yourself. It's not a medical diagnosis or anything like that. It's just, this is who I think I am because I know myself well, and I know that I am a person who's perfectly happy on my own. I know that I am an introvert. So if you ask me who I am, this is how I will describe myself. These are the words I will use to paint a picture of my personality. And it says she also took an unconventional road to television stardom. Well, yeah, actually being an introvert is kind of unconventional. It's a little strange. It's a little different from what is normal, what is common, what we regularly see. Actors and actresses are often quite outgoing, right? They like attention. They like to be on a stage. They like to have people look at them. It kind of helps them to feel the energy from the audience or something like that. Someone who is shy, who's also a performer, that's a little strange. That's a little unconventional, outside of what is common or normal. And she also took a slightly odd or unusual road to television stardom. In other words, she became famous. She got on TV and became a public figure in a kind of slightly strange way. This is the road to stardom. Stardom basically being celebrity, being famous, being well-known, being popular as well, but certainly being well-known and in the public eye.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's find out some more about her life and times in the second part.
Myers was born on April 2nd, 2002 in Orlando, Florida, and grew up in a busy household with 3 sisters. The Myers girls were homeschooled, which gave Emma the freedom to explore her interests, from competitive dance to community theater. As a child, Myers loved the Lord of the Rings movies, and she'd often watch behind-the-scenes interviews and clips of how the films were made. She admired how the actors could bring the imaginary setting of Middle-earth to life, which sparked a desire to pursue acting.
第二部分介绍形容词 competitive， 指竞争的或是好胜的。例如 The environment at high-ranking universities can be very competitive. 名列前茅的大学环境可能是非常竞争的。或是 Due to her competitive nature, Nora is constantly working to be the best at everything she does. 由于生性好胜 Nora 总是努力在她所做的每件事上做到最好。下一个看到名词 community， 它的意思是社区或是群体。例如 Reba volunteers at a senior center that supports senior citizens in the local community. Reba 在一间支援当地社区年长居民的老人中心担任志工。也可以说 Sadly, many young people are leaving this rural community to move to big cities. 遗憾的是，许多年轻人正在离开这个乡下社区搬到大城市。继续介绍形容词 imaginary， 表示虚构的或是想象的。可以说 Children often have imaginary friends they talk to when they're alone. 小孩常在独处时与他们虚构的朋友讲话。又或者说 The story is set in an imaginary world where animals can talk. 这个故事设定在一个动物能说话的虚构世界中。另外补充相关字 imaginative, I-M-A-G-I-N-A-T-I-V-E, imaginative 这个形容词的意思是富想象力的或是有创造力的。举个例子 Jody wrote an imaginative story about a time-traveling detective. Jody 写了一个富有想象力的故事，讲述了一位穿越时空的侦探。也可以说 This book is an imaginative story about a society that lives at the bottom of the ocean. 这本书是关于一个生活在海底的社会，充满想象力的故事。最后看到名词 setting 表示场景或是故事背景，可以说 The setting for the story was a German town at the end of World War II. 这个故事的背景是第二次世界大战尾声的一个德国城镇。再看一个例子 Hawaii should provide a lovely setting for our summer vacation. 夏威夷应该会成为我们夏季度假的美好地点。
Okay, so where was she born? Well, Myers was born on April 2nd, 2002 in Orlando, Florida, and grew up in a busy household with 3 sisters. Okay, as you know, Orlando is a city in Florida, and she was not an only child. She had 3 sisters, so it was a busy household. A household, of course, is a home, or it's a family where they all live together, and you might consider everything in the home, like how many people are in your household? Well, there are 5 people in our household. There's 3 family members and 2 parents or whatever. So that's the household here. And yes, indeed, she grew up with some sisters.
That's absolutely right. So yes, with household, we talk about the people or maybe the animals who occupy the house. We're not talking about your furniture or things like that, just the people who live there who call it home. So she had 3 sisters, quite a busy place to be, a busy household. And they actually spent a lot of time there and a lot of time together. It says the Myers girls were homeschooled, which gave Emma the freedom to explore her interests from competitive dance to community theater. So their parents chose a slightly different way of educating their kids. They didn't send them off to the local schools. They taught them themselves at home around the kitchen table or something like that. This is something that some people do. I think it's more common in America maybe than in other places. But basically you can get all of the textbooks and things. You can order them all. And as long as there's a parent there to kind of supervise and make sure the kids are learning what they need to learn, the kids can study at home, they can do their homework at home, and they take kind of standard tests. And so they can graduate without actually having to go to high school and have that whole sort of high school institutional educational experience. They do it at home in the family instead. And this gave her, though, the freedom to explore her interests. It does absolutely allow the parents to sort of guide the kids a little bit more than they would if the kids were being sent off to school. It also gives the kids maybe less pressure because that whole social aspect, which is a big part of American high school especially, it's not obviously a part of being homeschooled. So, worrying about getting a date or going to the prom or being bullied or things like that, that's not really such a big part of it for them growing up. And for kids, especially if you're a shy, introverted kid like Emma, that could be really good. That could be very liberating and, help her avoid some of the stresses and strains of growing up and going to school. And it also allowed her to engage her other interests, competitive dance. So she would learn dance and enter competitions. So competitive dance is where you actually go to a competition and you compete against other people, either individually or in groups, ballet contests, tap dancing contests, whatever it might be. So if you're doing something in a way where you're playing against others, competing against others, there are winners, there are losers, there are prizes and trophies. That is competitive in nature instead of just kind of being for fun. And she was also on stage acting in community theater. So many schools will have a theater or a drama program where the students put on plays. But if you're homeschooled, obviously that's not an option. But also many communities, many towns, villages, and within cities, you'll have community theater. This is basically volunteer theater. People who have regular jobs or go to school, they do this on the weekend, in the evening. It's a hobby, it's an activity. In the same same way you might get together with your friends to play basketball or get together with your friends to engage in a hobby, people get together to put on plays and shows. And you'll have directors, you'll have actors, people will try out. Some people hopefully will volunteer to do the less glamorous things like build the set and paint stuff. But they basically put on shows at the local town hall or community center, and it's all done in a very amateur sort of volunteer basis. But she got her opportunity to get on stage and learn some acting skills through that method.
Now, here in the next paragraph, it says, as a child, or when she was a child, Myers loved the Lord of the Rings movies, and she'd often watch behind-the-scenes interviews and clips of how the films were made. So during the 2000s, these movies came out. I guess they were directed by Peter Jackson, that director from New Zealand, and they were quite popular at the time. So when she was growing up, of course, she was a big fan of those movies. Wow, they're so cool. And then she would often watch these documentaries which showed how these movies were made. She would watch behind-the-scenes interviews and clips of how the films were made. So if something is behind the scenes, it gives you some background information on a movie or any other kind of production. So you get to see the cameras and the makeup artists and things like that. They're interviewed, and maybe you can see the actors clowning around between takes or whatever. So yeah, that's behind-the-scenes interviews and also clips of how those films were made because she was fascinated with those movies.
Entertaining and interesting, and she wanted to know how the magic happened. And it says she admired how the actors could bring the imaginary setting of Middle-earth to life, which sparked a desire to pursue acting. So it was through these interviews with some of the actors. Orlando Bloom, of course, was one guy who came out of those, became very famous through it. Viggo Mortensen, of course, had a big role, and Sir Ian McKellen as Gandalf. So all of these actors would be interviewed talking about, how they sort of decided to play the character after reading the novels and how the director guided them and, all that kind of stuff to bring the imaginary setting of Middle-earth to life. That really is the role or the job of actors and directors and other people working on a film or a play or a television show, to bring something to life, to sort of make it real, take it from the pages of the script or the novel or wherever it comes from, the words that the writers think up, and then make it into an actual story with actual characters and movement and action and life, and really make it also emotionally powerful. And that's what we mean by bringing it to life, sort of turning it from just black letters on a white page into something that can actually, cause emotional reaction. And this is especially challenging when you're dealing with a place that people have never seen, an imaginary setting. Something imaginary is something that comes from your imagination, and in this case, it's an imaginary world. This place does not exist. Does not exist back in time, in history. It's kind of like science fiction. This would be fantasy. The Lord of the Rings would be described as fantasy, but like science fiction, it really just springs from the ideas of the writer, and they might use influences from the real world, but a lot of it is really just made up. So it's more of a challenge for those actors and writers to make it something that other people can relate to. And the setting of something, well, basically that's where the story takes place. So when we say this movie is set, the setting is on a space station in space 300 years in the future. It's in a French village during World War I. It's in the city of New York, present day. So that's the setting of it, right, where the story is. And that, of course, will determine what the actors wear, how they speak, the props, and all the different scenarios that can change depending on the setting. And for her, watching all of this stuff and seeing the actors' craft and how they made the story come to life, it sparked a desire to pursue acting, to spark something in the same way that a spark is a tiny sort of bit of fire, I guess you could say, that can cause a fire to ignite or cause a fire to start. We can also use this idea of starting a fire to talk about starting an interest in something. I'm now an animal biologist or a veterinarian, and that was sparked by a visit to the zoo I had when I was 6 years old with my grandfather, and he explained animals, and wow, I suddenly found it really fascinating. That's where it all started.
Okay, let's move on now to the third and final part of our lesson for today. We will listen first.
Her first role came in Letters to God in 2010, when she was just 8 years old. That year, she also appeared in the TV show The Glades and a short film called Crooked. Her big break, however, didn't come until 2022, when she co-starred in Wednesday. The show made her famous overnight, with her Instagram followers jumping from 9,000 to 5 million in just 3 days.
Okay, so remember, Myers was inspired by watching documentaries about how the Lord of the Rings movies were made. So her first role came in Letters to God in 2010, which is quite some time ago. And that was when she was only or just 8 years old. And that year, she also appeared in the TV show The Glades and a short film called Crooked. Okay, I guess that's quite an accomplishment.
Her big break, however, didn't come until 2022 when she co-starred in Wednesday. So she had some acting experience. She'd been cast in these other shows, but she was just a member of the cast. She really didn't attract that much attention, and maybe she had a smaller part. So her big break, her big chance, her big opportunity to go from just working actor to famous working actor, it happened with the show Wednesday. And of course, she's co-starring on that. She is Wednesday Addams' best friend. So they're kind of a pair, a twosome, a couple, a duo. And so she's got maybe not as top billing as Jenna Ortega, who plays Wednesday, but she's one of the other main co-stars or main characters in it. Gets a lot of screen time, and the show made her famous overnight, with her Instagram followers jumping from 9,000 to 5 million in just 3 days. That is absolutely incredible. So as a young working actress, she had a few fans, 9,000 people, many of them probably friends and family. And then all of a sudden, after being on this very popular Netflix show, 5 million people are checking out her Instagram. That happened in 3 days. What a busy and strange 3 days that must have been.
I feel so ashamed. I've only got 5 followers on Instagram, and I only posted one picture on there about 3 years ago. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Here comes Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分提到 Emma Myers 自称是个内向的人，却走上了一条非传统的电视明星之路。文中是用 introvert 来表达内向的人。我们来学习它的字首字根。首先 intro 这个字首呢，有 into、within 或者是 inward 等等的语义，它表示进入里面，在点点点之中，或者是朝内。好，那么在 introvert 这个字当中，它的字首 intro 表示向内，字根 vert 表示转动或转变，合在一起，introvert 就是指内向者，性格内向的人。好，那相反的 extrovert 则是指外向者，那它的字首 extro 是来自 extra， 表示 outside 向外，那搭配这个字跟 vert 变成 extrovert， 那就表示外向者，性格外向的人。好，这边也顺便介绍字根 vert 和 vers， 那这一类字根它有转动、翻转或变动的意思，带有这一类字根的字大多含有改变原状的语义。我们就来看看几个带有这一类字根的单字。第一个是 invert invert， 那它的字首 in 表示在点点点之中，在点点点之上，那么字根 vert 表示翻转。当我们把东西内外或上下翻转，那么它就会前后倒置或是上下颠倒。用这个方法也许可以联想到 invert 它有使倒置、使颠倒的意思。第二个补充 divert 或是念作 divert， 它的字首 di 表示分离或是从点点点，字根 vert 表示转，我们就可以用转移到旁边来联想 divert 它有使转向、使改道或者是转移注意力的意思。第三个补充的是 versatile 或者是 versatile， 它的字根 vers 表示转， at 是来自动词字尾 ate 表达使成为，那么 ile 它是形容词字尾，表示具有某种能力。所以从这个字根字尾表面意思来看， versatile 它是指具有转动变动的能力，也就是具有多变的能力，所以从这个语义再带出了多才多艺的意思。那 versatile 就可以形容多才多艺的、多用途的。课文第三部分有一句提到 Her big break, however, didn't come until 2022. 然而直到2022年，她才迎来事业大突破。 好，注意句中的 big break 不是大休息哦 break 在这边是名词，表示机会好运，那么 big break 就是指大好机会，引申表达时来运转，重大转机。至于 until 它可以当连接词或介系词，那在搭配否定句的时候是表达直到点点点才开始。我们常看到的句型就是主词 not 搭配动词， until 后面可以接名词或子句。例如 She didn't go to bed until her parents came home. 直到爸妈回到家，她才上床睡觉。好，那以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Unconventional. At the fashion show, some of the models wore dresses made of unconventional materials like paper and rubber. Household. The survey results included responses from more than 1,000 households across the country. Competitive. In order to test their knowledge and skills, the students were placed in a competitive environment. Community. Our community holds a street fair every summer on the first Saturday in July. Imaginary. During art class today, Sally drew an imaginary city that floated in the sky. Setting. Changing the story's setting from a city to a desert made the story more dramatic. Spark. Around the World in 80 Days was the book that sparked Kurt's desire to travel. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, so please make sure you join us again next time. For all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Roger.
See you next time.